Hello, hello, hello. In this video, we're going to talk about the new Paladin 6.3 because it's been on my mind for a little bit and I want to get my thoughts out there. This is probably going to be a shortish video, but I'm just going to go through some pros and cons of the stuff that I saw at the new patch. So let's jump right into it. For pros, the first thing I'm going to talk about is Sheltron and Holy Sheltron. They no longer block, which is pretty good because it just has a base damage reduction now. But what also adds on to this is the fact that we now have Bulwark, which I'm very glad that we now have an extra cooldown, because I've been saying for a very long time that I think Paladin needs an extra cooldown. And not only does it guarantee block for 10 seconds, but because they changed the way Sheltrons work, you can stack it with the Sheltrons and get the damage reduction plus the block, which is really good. So I'm glad about that. Paladin feels a lot more defensive now, and it feels more on par with the other tanks, which I'm happy about, because for the longest time it's been trash in that regard, in my opinion. For the next thing, Veil, it's now instant, so you don't need a heal, and it works on yourself, which is also really good. It's another thing that I've been saying for the longest time, that I do not understand why Veil needed a heal, especially when they put Shake It Off in the game for Warrior, and it was literally like the exact same ability, but Shake did not need a heal, and Veil did. So that's good. That's very good. And it works on yourself, which was another thing. Why the heck did it not work on yourself before? I will never know. But it works on yourself now. The only thing I'll note with that is because they changed it to be this way, you can't throw out Veil as early as you could before, because technically you would have like a 60-second Veil if you just didn't get healed in the first 30 seconds, or I guess 29 seconds of the old Veil, and then you proc it at the very end, so you could get it on cooldown faster. But now it's just instant, so just don't try and use it too preemptively like you may have used it in the past. Now that we're done with like cooldowns, once again, defensively, Paladin's a lot better. Now that we're done with cooldowns, though, onto the DPS rotation. And I'm gonna slightly talk about the pros of it, but it's gonna go straight into the negatives, like right afterwards, because I'm very torn on the DPS rotation. The Holy Spirit change is pretty good, and it does feel fun to play, but the rotation as a whole, I think, is still pretty whack, because of how you have to play it by dropping atonement stacks. But like I said, I'd stay pro for a little bit, so I do like the Holy Spirit change. I do think that the burst windows in general are more fun to play on Paladin now, because you kind of like, you use everything at once, and it's always like, it doesn't really have 2 minutes, it's just everything's 60 seconds, so I feel like you get to do everything a lot. You get to do everything a lot, and it's all together, so which is pretty fun, in my opinion. FFXIV, you pretty much just use that on your confetti or combo. That's fine. I think that's how it probably should work. That's fine, in my opinion. So let me talk about the cons now, because that's the main bulk of what I want to talk about. That's what's on my mind. First of all, why did this job just get rebalanced? And yet, our rotation's already messed up. Why am I dropping 2 atonement stacks? It makes no sense to me. Why do you have that much filler in your rotation? And I have to take this like step by step, because Paladin like builds on top of each other with the bad rotation. So the first thing, like I said, the way you go with your rotation now, with your fight or flight and your FFXIV windows, you have too many buttons on Paladin. So you get to a point where you have to just drop 2 unbuffed atonement stacks so that your rotation will line up, and you won't misalign your own buffs because you're taking too long to get back to them. This is assuming you're playing at 2.5 GCD, which is what most people are probably playing Paladin at now anyway, because there's not much reason with the gear right now to have skill speed. So with that skill speed, you pretty much just have to drop 2 atonements to keep your rotation correct, which is, it just makes no sense. It's just like, I get that, you know, it flows if you do that, but why is that even a thing? Why do we have just 2 extra GCDs in there? So moving on from that, not only does Atonement still have 3 stacks, even though we're dropping 2 of them, Another thing that I have to talk about is Goring Blade. This ability, like, actually irks me so much because they literally just wanted to keep it in the game, but they didn't want to do any of the work for it. They just gave it a little bit extra potency so that we have to use it, kept it on the GCD for some reason, and it's just there. It has no dot, no AoE, it doesn't have like a humongous amount of damage, like double down or anything, and it's not an off GCD. Because it's not even like a carve and spit on Dark Knight. It's like if you were playing Warrior and you went to Fell Cleave and that just delays your entire rotation. Like you can't use some of your gauge. You just have to overcap on gauge or something on Warrior to keep your rotation lined up. It makes no sense. So Goring Blade is god awful. I want to talk about Shield Bash for a second because Shield Bash is also god awful. It's actually worse because you never use Shield Bash. At least with Goring Blade, you use it. Shield Bash is literally no reason. The reason why I want to talk about these together is because I thought of an idea for Goring Blade and Shield Bash. You could have it kinda in the same vein as how Dark Knight has Carve and Spit and Abyssal Drain. Because I've been saying for the longest time, if you go back and look at some of Thornton's Knights, they'll use Goring Blade, but theirs kinda like cones out. It looks like an AoE, even though obviously it's single target. But when they do that animation, it looks like a cone. And I've been saying for a while, wouldn't it be cool if Goring Blade was an AoE? And then I was like, wait, that's what you could do. Just make Goring Blade an AoE, and then Shield Bash is the equivalent for single target. I still think they should be off GCD, but I mean, if we're messing with the GCD, then just keep it on there. But have one or the other. The reason why I say that is because Goring Blade right now, when you get into AoE situations, it feels god awful to just use Goring Blade because it does nothing besides 700 potency and it's only on one target. But if it was AoE and then we had Shield Bash for when we do single target, it's like, okay, now we have two things and Shield Bash actually has a use. And Goring Blade doesn't piss me off. So that's what I think about those two abilities. Next, let's talk about cover. Why is this still in the game? Well, I know why it's in the game. It's because of the aesthetic of Paladin. Cover is kind of a cool ability when it works, but it doesn't work most of the time, and it doesn't have like anything extra on it like it did back in Stormblood. So it's pretty pointless. The fact that it costs 50 gauge is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know why that's even a thing. It baffles me, honestly. I just don't know why they kept it like that. And like I said, for most of these things in the con section, I just don't understand how this happens after you go through a rework. I would almost rather have them have just made the defensive changes because those were good, and then just save the damage for 7.0 if you needed that much extra time in the oven for this stuff. So that's cover. Next, Clemency. I mean, Clemency is still the same thing. Like, you'll use it once in a blue moon to like save somebody so you don't wipe, but you really don't use that much. Honestly, a targeted equilibrium might be kind of cool. Being on the off GCD in general would probably be pretty cool for Clemency. Especially now, actually, because like, what was it, Shadowbringers, I think you could use Requiescat and Clemency, and you get like ridiculous Clemencies. But now it's like you're definitely not using Requiescat on Clemency because you only have 4 stacks, so you're gonna use it on your Confiteor combo. So it's like, I mean, it's a heal, but it's like, it's not even like that great of a heal, and you're not gonna buff it with Requiescat, so it's kind of worthless. I think that's it. I guess another thing, I spoke on it before when I talked about Atonement, but it's just like, again, I can't remember if I said this or not, but I think I did, maybe, whatever. Atonement, I just don't know why it still has like 3 stacks. I think they should just bring it down to like 1 stack or something. Oh, I know the other thing about Atonement. Fight or Flight. So they kept the 3 Atonement stacks, and they gave us Goring Blade to fit into the combo. They also gave us the Holy Spirit to fit into the combo, but then they cut the duration of Fight or Flight. Why would you cut it? It would have made more sense if it stayed 25 seconds, because then I could have actually got my stuff in there. But it's like, I don't know. I just don't know why they did that. Like I said, I wish they had just made the defensive changes and then just been like, okay, we'll change it around for offense in 7.0. Because now it's just like I said, it's fun to play. I like the rotation, but it always feels awful to me when I get to the point and I'm like, hey, I just have to drop 2 atonements. They're there, but I just got to drop them. Because if I don't, then all my stuff's messed up. It's weird. It's weird. And half your atonements don't even get in your buff anymore. Like I said, because Fight or Flight only lasts 20 seconds now. So it's just like, I don't understand the logic. It makes no sense to me. But I don't know. This is mostly just a rant. I wanted to rant on Paladin because, like, I wanted to play Paladin, and I still might play Paladin. And I'm not really that Paladin dude either. I'm just kind of like, I've always played all the tanks, so I always want to be able to play all the tanks. And it's still very playable. Like I said, it's way better defensively now than it has been probably ever, actually. Probably ever, actually. Well, I don't know. Stormblood cover was pretty broken, but anyway, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's definitely pretty good. I don't know anything about damage yet, but it's probably still. Honestly, it's probably still around where it was before. It probably just keep getting buffs now, but I mean, it's good. It's still a good thing. It just feels wrong. It feels wrong. It feels like I'm messing up when I shouldn't be, because it's just how the job has to be played to fit your stuff correctly. So I don't know. I would like to see some changes to either taking stuff out of your rotation, or like upping Fight or Flight's duration again to 25 seconds. Goring Blade, they have to make some type of change to. They either have to make it AoE, give it an AoE equivalent, or just something like a dot, anything. Just make it better than just 700 potency on the GCD slowing me down. It annoys me. It hurts me. But yeah, I think that's it. Like I said, this is mostly just a rant on Paladin. But I do think it's still good. I think it's still good. Oh, actually, hold on. Another thing. Why the heck is my gauge still built on auto attacks? That was one of the biggest gripes with Paladin people in DSR, is that the boss jumps too much and it's hard to keep up your gauge. Why the heck is it still built around auto attacks? It's just, I don't know. This job, it's like they made a big deal about rebalancing it, but it's like it's just half baked. It's half baked, and I don't know. Maybe they actually just ran out of time, and they're just gonna finish the rest of it in 7.0. I don't know, but it feels half baked. It feels good. I mean, it tastes pretty good. It tastes pretty good. It's pretty fun to burst with, but it's still half baked. It's probably gonna get you sick. But anyway, I think that's my rant on Paladin. I think that's all I have to say. I just wanted to get my thoughts out there because they were in my head and they wouldn't leave. They were living rent-free in my mind. So that's all I have to say. Bye.